What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday. We are just about ready for the weekend, and you couldn't get the weekend started. You couldn't get your baseball weekend started without listening to me, Eric Kane, here on The Porch, brought to you by our friends, our best friends, Spivey King and Spivey, LLP. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. TN Trial Lawyers, they specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. If you have a need, you can pick up the phone and call them today for a free consultation. That is at 423-245-4185. Or visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Proud sponsors of The Porch. My friends, they can be yours as well. That's Spivey King and Spivey LLP. All right, we have got a big one this weekend. No sugarcoating it. Number 4, Tennessee, according to D1 baseball rankings. At number 3, Kentucky. Kentucky's kind of started off hot each of the last couple of seasons, then kind of fallen back down to earth. So far this year, there's been no other shoe to drop. Kentucky's just been really good. They are 31-5, 14-1 in Southeastern Conference play. They swept Georgia at home, took 2 of 3 on the road in Como, swept Ole Miss in Oxford, swept Alabama at home, and swept Auburn on the road. That is what it has done in Southeastern Conference play so far. It's been really, really impressive. And keep in mind, there's been some common opponents here. Tennessee's played Georgia, won that series. Tennessee played Ole Miss, won that series. Tennessee played Alabama, lost that series. Tennessee played Auburn, won that series. So there's been a whole lot of common opponents. So, like, has Kentucky played the Arkansas, the Vanderbilts, the Floridas, the Tennessees yet? No, it has not. But I don't think we should discredit what the Wildcats have done so far this season. Should be interesting. Should be a really, really interesting weekend. It's going to be on the road. It's going to be in Lexington. Feels like weather is always a factor up there. I know the weather's going to drop a little bit this weekend, so it's going to be a little bit cooler, but hopefully it won't be like it was in 2022 when it was 40 and raining in the middle of May. You know what I'm saying? But there's going to be a whole lot of national media contingent there. There's going to be D1 baseball guys, Baseball America guys. There's going to be a lot of publicity for this series this weekend, and rightfully so. You know, Tennessee is as high as number 2 in one of the rankings this week. It's number 3 in pretty much all of them except D1 baseball, which is the one that we go by. And, of course, Tennessee is at number 4. So before we get into Luke Lipsius, who's coming up here in just a moment, and then kind of, man, Luke's good. Like, we're starting to dive into a number of different topics here. And we talked for about 22 minutes. So that's coming up here in just a couple of minutes. I really want to kind of get into who Kentucky is first so we have a general understanding of how Tennessee's going to go about trying to take down the Wildcats. Weekend rotation, the projected. I'm full disclosure here. I'm totally doing this before I've got the projected weekend rotation. But for the most part, man, Kentucky's been very, very consistent with who they're at, who they've been on the mound. You had a guy in the name of Travis Smith. He was the opening day starter. He started every Friday night up until one weekend SEC play, and then they removed him, put him in the bullpen, and they've started Trey Poozer. And he started each of the past 4 weeks, but Dominic Neiman and Mason Moore, they've started every single weekend of the season. So it's been very routine for Kentucky so far this season. Poozer's 3-0, 4.11 ERA. Neiman is 7-2, 3.40 ERA. Mason Moore, thankfully for an easier name there, 7-0, a 3.45 ERA. Very, very stable, if you will. Kentucky overall, not just the pitching staff, it is very, very solid. It is very, very average. Nothing stands out in terms of being great. But, I mean, these numbers, obviously, 7-0, 3.45, 7-0, 3.40, those are pretty daggone good. I mean, I know those look pretty good, but you look at Kentucky overall, they're 5th in the SEC with an ERA of 3.91. Tennessee, of course, is in 3rd at 3.76 ERA. It's last in strikeouts at 3.03, giving up the second fewest hits at 2.51. Kentucky's also given up the fewest home runs in the league at 26 overall in the season, and that's something to pay attention to. How many home runs did Tennessee hit this weekend? Because Kentucky has given up the fewest in the SEC at 26, while Tennessee has hit the most in the nation at 101. So I'm intrigued to see what that kind of looks like. Back to the starting rotation. Poozer, he's a graduate student. He'll be making his 5th straight start in league play. 32 innings, 3-0 on the season, 4.11 ERA, 33 strikeouts, 13 walks, good locator. He got roughed up in his last outing against Auburn last weekend, and he allowed 4 runs off 4 hits and 4 walks, just 3 innings of work. Go to the lefty, Dominic Neiman. Made all 9 weekend starts so far this season, 7-2, a 3.40 ERA. He tossed 1 shutout. He's got 1 shutout on the season. He's logged a team high 53 innings on the mound, 47 strikeouts. That's a team high as well. He's been as solid as they come for Kentucky. 1 blemish on the radar to date was at Ole Miss 3 weeks ago, where he allowed 7 runs off 8 hits and 6 innings of work. So, much like Drew Beam, this Dominic Neiman character has been really, really solid for Kentucky. Very stable, and you know what you're going to get when he's on the mound. Mason Moore on Sunday, he's a righty. Again, 7-0, 3.45 ERA. He's been really good. He's got 43 Ks. Team high 22 walks, though, in 47 innings. So, command, sometimes an issue for Moore, but it hasn't come back to bite him yet. Hopefully it will this weekend against Tennessee. He, too, was roughed up in his last outing against Auburn last weekend. Tagged for 6 runs, 5 earned, off 4 hits, and just 2 innings and a third. And so maybe Tennessee can continue that trend a little bit of roughing up those Kentucky starters. I mentioned Travis Smith, opening day starter, made the first 5 Friday starts of the week or of the season, and he's been moved to the bullpen since. He's got a 2-2 record, a 5.40 ERA on the season, 8 appearances. As a starter this season, he allowed 20 runs, 18 earned off 25 hits. Since being moved to the bullpen, 3 appearances, 7 innings, 1 run, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. Been a whole lot more effective in the bullpen as Travis Smith. Other guys that pay attention to, Johnny Hummel, Cameron O'Brien, Evan Byers, Jackson Nove, Robert Hogan. Those are the arms that kind of comprise the bulk of that Kentucky bullpen. So Kentucky, got to give them credit where the credit's due on the mound. They have taken advantage of who's been in front of them. They've beaten some solid teams and some good offenses like Georgia. I'm not trying to discredit any of that. The numbers look good for their starters, but overall just kind of meh on paper. And that's what Luke says here in a moment. Let's go to the Kentucky offense. A lot of the same, to be honest. Kentucky ranks 6th in the SEC with a 294 batting average. Tennessee leads the way at 334. The Wildcats rank 4th in runs scored at 311 and runs batted in, RBI, at 286. 10th in home runs at 51. 7th in total bases at 593. Meanwhile, Tennessee leads the conference in every single one of those categories. So, offensively, we know who's the better team for sure. But managing the run game, as we know, and I've wrote about it in the 3-2-1. We've talked about it a little bit on the podcast earlier this week. Managing the run game is going to be very critical for Tennessee this week. Very critical. Because Kentucky, who likes to play small ball, likes to get a hit, steal, sack a bunt over, come in on a base hit, or steal second, steal third, whatever the case is, they lead the SEC with 79 stolen bases. So we'll talk with Luke about it here in a moment on how you can control that. But your battery has got to be aware of that and has got to be very, very keen to understand what Kentucky's going to do. Designated hitter Nick Lopez leads the Wildcats, hits cleanup, 4th in the order, a 392 batting average. That's top 6 in the conference. Scored a team high 36 runs, 14 doubles as well, 4 home runs, 28 ribbies. First baseman Ryan Nicholson is the power source in that order. He smashed a team high 10 home runs, 34 ribbies. The only player in the order that has double-digit home runs. Meanwhile, Tennessee has like 5. Emilien Petrie. He mans the keystone, second base, bats second in the order. Leads the squad with 18 stolen bases, blasting 5 home runs, 35 RBI. Shortstop Grant Smith, he's got some pop in the bottom of the order. He hits in the 9 hole, but he's got a 302 batting average, which is really good and consistent in the 9 hole. 4 homers, 23 ribby. Leadoff hitter is Ryan Waldschmidt. He's second on the team in average at 327. He's stolen 13 bags. He's also had 14 home runs and driven in 19 runs as well. The only preseason player voted on by the media, or by the coaches, I should say, prior to the season, was Kentucky catcher Devin Burks. He hits 3rd in the order. His average is nothing to brag about this year at 237, but he has stolen 14 bases. He's one of 3 Kentucky Wildcats who have stolen over 13 bases so far this season. So just something to be mindful of. That's kind of the order. Again, on paper, super duper average, but they play small ball. They're going, Tennessee just had its first sack bunt last weekend. Shout out Payne Gang, Ethan Payne. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure Kentucky's got a whole lot more, right? They're going to get on base, bunt them over, steal, whatever, steal second, steal third, come in on a single. Tennessee's just got to be able to combat that for sure. But on paper, man, super, super average. That is who Kentucky is. We'll get into more about the Kentucky Wildcats when we talk with Luke Lipsius here in just a moment. I do want to touch base real quick on Tennessee's rotation. If something changes, maybe I'll come back and kind of change this. But I have conversations throughout the week. It looks like Tennessee's going to continue on and do what it's going to do with Stamos kind of opening Friday nights and then handing the ball to A.J. Causey. Why fix what's not broken from last Friday, right? Then you got Drew Beam on Saturday. I hope you guys had a chance to read my Drew Beam, Luke Hochaver story from earlier this week. Not trying to brag, but let me just pat myself on the back. Hey, that's a good story. I mean, it really is, and I'm so gracious to both those guys for talking to me. If you haven't read it so far, I encourage you to go and do that. And as I'm recording this right now, getting confirmation that it is indeed the same rotation. So you're going to have Stamos kick things off on Friday, Drew Beam on Saturday, and then Xander on Sunday. For Kentucky, you're going to have Trey Poser, Dominic Neiman, and Mason Moore. Yeah, so exactly what we thought it was going to be. And Drew Beam bounced back, and so that's great to see. And Xander is not even considered an opener anymore, man. He's your third. He's your third string. He's your third starter, and he's been doing a heck of a job. And he's going to need to do a heck of a job this weekend as well to take down the Wildcats. Now, Blake Burke, goodness gracious, he is currently tied for the longest hit streak in program history at 27 games with Condors Holloway. His on-base streak is up to, I want to say, 36 games. He is currently tied for the nation lead with 20 doubles. He leads Tennessee in home runs with 43 in his career. He's on a tear. Christian Moore is one back at 42. Okay. I'm trying to think of some other notables right now. Tennessee's just a really good ball club, and I think that if you come out on the other side of this weekend with the series win, as I wrote in the 3-2-1, I think Tennessee can be great. Tennessee can solidify being a great team. And Kentucky's going to be its toughest battle yet. Same for the Wildcats. Tennessee's going to be its toughest battle yet so far. So I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. All that and more is coming up this weekend. Of course, I'll be in Lexington. We'll have your coverage for you right here at Volquest.com. Luke Lipsius, VFL Luc Lipcius, he is coming up next right here on the porch. But first, give shouts, give thanks, and praise to our friends over at Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. You got a problem, let them find a solution for you. T and Trial Lawyers, criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. That is what they specialize in, such as homicide, assault, DUI. 80 years of combined experience. Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP provides representation throughout the state and federal courts in Northeast Tennessee. The firm has a vast amount of trial experience. Practice has been in place for 43 years, with this partnership forming in 2012, while also having partners who are energized for today's modern legal demands. Practicing primarily in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, as well as Hawkins County, Washington County, and surrounding areas, the firm has won awards and have attorneys who are rated by super lawyers with Mid-South real trial experience. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, need a divorce, help with custody of your children, or have been accused of a crime, Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP is here to help you. Go see him in person at 142 Cherokee Street in Kingsport, Tennessee. Pick up the phone and call him today for a free consultation, 423-245-4185, or visit them online at Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you, T and Trial Lawyers.
Luke, a lot to be pleased with right now with the way Tennessee's playing. Of course, sweeping LSU, and anytime you can sweep LSU, that's good. But I know they're not the defending national. They are the defending national champs. They're not the same team they were last year, but still a really good series win. Couple that with, I think that makes it 4 straight series wins, and feels like as you continue to go on, Tennessee's starting to answer some more of those questions that we had.
Yeah, it's funny. I just want to start off with kind of a side note that LSU, another one of those SEC teams that seems to be having a little bit of a World Series hangover. We got Ole Miss wins the World Series, doesn't do well next year. Mississippi State wins the World Series, doesn't do well next year. It's kind of weird. LSU's the next team from the West to follow suit, but either way, a really really talented team that we just handled business. I thought the whole weekend, and we touched on this a little bit earlier. LSU was making some choice moves, whether it would be with lineup or pitching staff and stuff. They're a little bit rattled over there. I don't know what's going on, but either way, a lot of talent. And like you said, I think our guys are trending in the right direction. Having Amick back going in the second half of SEC play, he's going to keep on gaining strength, even though, that first AB coming off of an appendix removal is pretty impressive to do. But like I said, everything's trending in the right way. It looks like we're getting a little bit more confidence out of some other bullpen guys besides, Kirby and Snead, which is really good to see. And then, that offense is firing on all cylinders right now. You never know who's going to do big this weekend. This weekend, though, it seemed like it was a lot of the top of the lineup folks. The bottom of the lineup didn't really do too much except for that big double by Cal on Sunday. But, it's really good to see. I think we're right where we needed to be and almost where we were expected to be halfway through this SEC season. So I'm just looking forward to this back half.
Yeah, it's going to be good starting this weekend with Kentucky, and of course we'll talk about that here in a moment. Going back to Billy Amick, I mean it's insane that he hit a home run his first at bat back, first pitch, and then of course the next game he homers. Mm-hmm. And we talked to him after the game, one of those games, and we're like, "So when did you know about the appendix and all that?" He's like, "Well, I started to really kind of hurt that Thursday before the Ole Miss series." And it was kind of bothering me all weekend long. And he's going in there and he's hitting a grand slam on Sunday. He's playing through pain, and then he gets it taken out. I can't even imagine. I never had appendicitis or anything, but playing with that type of discomfort and still producing the way he was.
Yeah, I mean, he's a gamer, and not just from the Ole Miss weekend where he's having discomfort, but from this weekend where he's just stepping back into things like normal. That's the sign of a true athlete. The one thing I will mention, I don't know, I'm sure the appendix is somewhere, in this midsection area, and the surgery you have to get in there. His slow rollers the plays he's making at third, not the best. I assume that's because it's a lot of twisting, when you try to field a slow roller, he's making a couple errant throws. Either way, there's so much good to be said about what he's doing coming off of an injury, and we know that he can play, and he's just going to produce. That's what he does.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, what did you like about Stamos? You called it, man. You and I were talking a lot kind of before the official, pitching rotations were kind of set last week, and I was like, I've heard it could be Combs, maybe Stamos. You're like, I hope it's Stamos because it's a different look, Stamos to Causey instead of Combs to Causey, and then that's what they went and they did, and looked like Stamos was in control, did a really good job, and then boy, man, getting AJ Causey back on track, it doesn't matter how you get it, as long as he's throwing about 95 pitches a weekend. Tennessee needs that, and it worked to perfection on Friday.
Yeah, so the first thing, Stamos, just to have the confidence to go out there and not let the moment get too big. He comes out of the gate and he sits down. I think he sits him down in order in that first inning.
Yeah.
So like that's just such a big statement for him. Coming out of the bullpen. He was really big early on, but then, he was just kind of here and there through the middle of the season. But then coming out on a Friday night against LSU, who is, I would say, a rival, and doing what he did is amazing. Then he gets pulled in that third inning, and it was a little scary at first when Causey first came in, because I think he came on with runners on. He lets up a run. And at that point, I was like, oh, my God, do not do anything bad. But, of course, he picks himself up. He goes a strong I think it was 5-ish or so. And it's just exactly what Causey needs. I think V is really good at pushing the right buttons at the right time. And I think we'll see a very similar scenario play out this weekend too. We'll go Stamos and Causey. Beam, of course, Saturday. And then, Xander's not even a opener anymore. He's just a full-on starter now.
Yeah.
So it's what's going on right now, and how people are kind of moving and shifting and adapting and just becoming a really good version of themselves is really fun to see.
I mean, fans are so passionate and they love the balls, and I get all that, but it's like, tell me this answer now. And if you're not producing now, we got to have immediate results. And it's like,
it's because we're a football fan base. You know, you lose one game and they go crazy. So it's guys, it's a long season.
for sure. And like with any sport, football included, but really in baseball, it's just, man, it's like, you got to play through things and you got to see how things materialize. And you're right, man. I thought about this earlier this week. Like Xander, it's like no thought about it. Xander's your Sunday starter. He's going to go and he might pitch 3 innings. He might go in the 6th inning. I mean, he's your guy now. And I mean, that's a huge hat tip to him, and he's doing a great job. Beam on Saturday, it was rough. His first 3 go-abouts in SEC play. He was a trooper at Alabama. We've talked about that, how he stayed in there after giving up 6 runs and goes, pitches a complete game in 8 innings. But it was not great against Georgia. It was okay against Ole Miss. His last 2 outings, he's gone 13 2/3, given up 3 runs, only 1 earned run, 13 strikeouts, 11 hits. He's been phenomenal. And on Saturday, man, I think it was 4 straight innings he allowed the leadoff man to reach. Just typical Beam, just pitching out of danger, pitching out of trouble, relying on his defense. That's good to see, because for Tennessee to accomplish its goals, they got to have good Drew Beam.
Yeah, no, over the past 2 weekends, we've seen that first round talent that people are projecting him at. And like you said, like, do whatever it takes to get you good. If you want to let the first guy on because you prefer pitching from the stretch, who cares, man? I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to be mad at you.
Or maybe just pitch from the stretch to begin with.
There you go. That is also an option. But yeah, what he's been doing as of late is just vintage Beam stuff. You see the command of freshman year mixed in with a new cutter, and then also a tick up in velo just makes him even that much more deadly of a pitcher. It's funny because he has elite stuff, but he also just pounds the zone, so he's going to get a lot of swings. So he's going to get deep into games, which is what we've seen. He's gone 6 or 7 innings past couple of times. So we're seeing Beam just fall into what we all knew he could be. He's probably shaken off some of those early SEC season jitters. But I mean, that's not to say he's got a really, really, really big series coming on him this weekend over there in Lexington. I just know the biggest factor in that series is the fact that Lexington just sucks to play at. I think the last 2 times that I went there, at least, it was May and it was like 40 and rainy, and we're just like, what is going on? So I'm hoping that they get some good weather, but it's a quality Kentucky team.
And I'll have a weather report later in the week, and maybe when I record the first half of this podcast, I'll have it more accurate. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be that bad, but the temperatures are going to drop this weekend because, of course, you're going to Lexington.
Of course.
We'll get into Kentucky here in a second. How big was it for Kirby's a long relief. I mean, Kirby's whatever you need him to be. He's a bridge. He's a long relief. I mean, he is just who he is. He's going to give up runs because he throws strikes, but they're going to pitch the crap out of him this year. It was so great to see Combs again give a great effort. Snead was pitching so hard in game 2 that his cutter wasn't moving at all because he had so much adrenaline. And he could have pitched Sunday, but they went with Combs. 6-out save. That was great. You can add closer to Combs' resume now outside of bridge, long relief, and even starter at points and times this year, opener. And then Andrew Binky stepped up, and he's shifting into that Kirby role of being just a specialist. At least, I know that they're not going to be perfect every time they go out, but you feel good about having Binky and Combs out there to add to a Stom and a Kirby and a Snead. The bullpen's starting to come together. Need a couple more, but it's starting to come together a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, especially with this coaching staff, is confidence. And throwing Binky out there, even though it was for the funniest stat is what was it, Saturday, I think it was, 0.1 innings, but he got the W. So I think that's so funny. But either way, throwing him out there and big situations, we're not boat racing any of these teams. Throwing him out there in big situations, even if it is for a third of an inning, and he's getting it done, just shows that they're building confidence in him because we're going to need him down the road. Just any other piece that we can keep adding to this bullpen is going to be paramount. I loved on Tuesday how Marcus Phillips came out absolutely throwing real well.
Yeah.
That's really good to see him throw 2 on Tuesday. I hope to see him this weekend because, I mean, we're going to need him. And that's the thing. The more pieces we can add as we keep on going through the season to that bullpen, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, Phillips is the guy that's been like going into the season, you thought he was going to be a player. He got a little bit of run in non-con, had a couple injuries where he was missing a couple weekends. Still hasn't really come in and done much in SEC, but he's that next guy that needs to step up. And
Mhm.
it seems like in the midweeks they have a clear pecking order, right? Like Dylan Lloyd's going to pitch. Matthew Dallas of the freshman's going to pitch. They got Schaefer in there on Tuesday, which I think was huge, even though it was only a third of an inning. Brady Robinson's gotten some run here in the last couple of midweeks. So if Phillips and Lloyd and then eventually, hopefully, a Dallas or a Schaefer can get in there by May and you go to Hoover, it's just going to make you that much deeper.
Yeah, totally. And again, it's those young guys where you're asking a lot of them, but they've been through a fall, they've been through a spring, they've seen what SEC is like.
Yeah.
It's time for another one to step up.
So Blake Burke, home runs are not even the story anymore. He had, he moved past Semo, who tied Burke on Sunday, and he was out of the lineup on Tuesday. Kind of shady on Vitello's part, but whatever. Burke's in there, hits the home run. He's 43, but the home runs aren't even the story anymore. He tied Condrez Holloway's hit streak at 27, longest in program history. His on-base streak is up to like 36 games. And I've asked Sean Barrows do you track the longest on-base streak? And he said no, but he gave me a couple notables like Liam Spence in 2021 was at 50. I think Gilbert's was at 28 in 2022. Semo at 20 last year, and then now Burke at 36. So in recent memory, he's climbing on up there. Tied for the nation lead in doubles. Again, we talk about it every single week. Dude is just a machine. I mean, he's first-team All-American, going to be, high draft pick. He is arguably the most important piece of the Tennessee team.
Yeah, I think it's so funny because last year it was the same thing. We were talking about him. It's just negative connotations.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to see us talking here, just like giving him all the praise that he deserves. But like you said, like he's making his way up the draft boards. I know that's not a big deal, but as far as, kind of materializing talent, the draft board is kind of the ultimate thing. But yeah, he is such an integral part to this lineup because not only is he going to drive in Semo and in later innings, whoever gets on before Semo, he's going to get on and on second. Like I said, I know he has 4 bags, but he's still not the fastest kid. So him being on first, not the best. When he's on second, he's scoring, on singles as long as it's not right to him. So like you said, he gets things going. He started the homer off on, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, one of the games. But he started off the scoring with a homer. And then again, he's just one of those good presences, plays with a lot of passion, and he's just such a good hitter. And I think everyone wants to see him hit a homer because they know how far he can hit it. And so you got a whole team behind him. And what he's doing right now is just great for not only himself, but also for the team.
So again, we're never going to know exactly what it was that kind of flipped that switch for him. But typically, and not always the case, but I would assume you were the same way. In the summer, you go play ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Burke didn't this past summer, and even when I was like last summer, I'm sitting there like, man, he needs to go work through this. Like, what are you doing? He stayed around campus, worked out with Q, and really kind of figured himself out. I'm just curious, like, obviously for him that was super beneficial. Maybe it's a person by person basis because I think going and playing through it would have been his best bet, but he stayed at campus, did his thing, worked with Q, and it's obviously paying off.
Yeah, so it's definitely a person by person thing. I think the most notable other player to do that is Wyatt Langford. He went from, I think it was either freshman or sophomore year, playing 20 games, limited ABs, did not play in summer, came back and was basically the SEC player of the year. Of course, it was a Dylan Cruz year or whatever. But he comes back that much better. And so Burke is one of those guys that had so many ABs that year that he really didn't need to play summer ball. So I think it was an extremely smart decision for him, to shed some of that baby weight that he still probably had, get stronger, and hone in his tools. And, it's funny because even at the start of this season, it was like, all right, when's it going to come around? When's it going to come around? When's it going to come around? And now it was like you said, a switch, and he just looks so comfortable now. And, that's what the summer does is it builds confidence. Mostly what the summer's for is getting ABs or getting players kind of out of their head. So a Peebles type player will go play summer ball and learn to, actually enjoy the game again, come back, have a good season, that kind of deal. But yeah, what Burke did, I didn't think that it was too much of a get in his head. It was more just okay, maybe I need to get a little stronger, work on the swing a little bit, blah, blah, blah. But whatever he did, it was awesome to see it pay off.
Yeah, no doubt. KT, he homered on Tuesday, which is great. He's kind of sliding here lately. Still second on the team in 377, the batting average, but that average was at 410 going into the weekend. Did you notice anything in his at-bats? Maybe he was pressing. He said himself he was kind of getting too big. What does that mean at the plate?
So I was about to say, like, something looked different, when it was almost to his younger years swing. He came with that giant leg kick, his hands, body parts moving all over the place. That's what it looked like this series. Is things are just kind of out of whack. Things aren't moving how they should, and he's getting too big. Now, to be fair, this is LSU, adrenaline's pumping.
Yeah.
That's fine for, the first couple ABs, maybe the first game. But, it was throughout the weekend that we're seeing this. So I think that he has it right. And when you say getting too big, you're kind of muscling up instead of, staying loose. That leg kick going a little high. The hands are stretching out a little bit more. All those little things that can just slightly change your swing that you're not to what you're not used to, which means it has giant impacts in the game. So I think that, he probably noticed it. KT's going to work with him, and they're just going to hone it in for this series that they got coming up.
All right, big series coming up. Number 4 at number 3. It's Kentucky. They're 14-1 in SEC play. They swept Georgia at home, took 2 of 3 on the road at Missouri, swept Ole Miss in Oxford, swept Alabama at home, swept Auburn on the road. So obviously 14-1 record, it's legit. Their biggest challenge, they're about to face off against Tennessee. Of course, they hadn't played the Vanderbilts, the Floridas, the Arkansas. Yeah, they haven't played Florida. Yeah, okay. But nonetheless, it's going to be a huge series. And I did my scout and kind of did my notes and everything on Kentucky. From afar, man, I haven't watched a whole lot of them. Saw it in the lineup. Guys that can hit a little bit. Nobody is great, right? One player has over 10 home runs. They run so well. 3 players have 13 stolen bases or more. So obviously managing the run game is going to be important. And then pitching-wise, they're just solid. They made one move in the rotation. Their opening day starter, Travis Smith, after the first weekend in SEC play, they moved him to the bullpen. They brought up another guy. And then outside of that, I mean, everybody's got 9-10 starts on the year. Just a well-rounded, solid, not great, but very good on paper baseball team. What's your viewpoint kind of from afar of who Kentucky is?
It's so funky because on paper they are so average, and it's
Yes.
you look at their stats and it literally is just average. You're like, all right, like nothing stands out, pitchers no, blah blah blah. But that's how they kind of always are in this new Mingione era that they're doing. Is a lot of just scrappy baseball, and they're going to execute things very, very well. They're going to be really well coached on pitching, offense, and defense. And what other teams, at least if they're like they have been, when other teams get a little rah-rah, like you saw LSU, getting like a little, pimping home runs, doing all this stuff to kind of light fires, they just don't do that. They stick to themselves. They play their game. And it's honestly pisses you off because you want to see a reaction. They just don't give you it. But again, they're going to bunt on you. They're going to run on you. And that's how they killed us in 22. They would bunt someone, steal second, single up the middle, whatever. They just play really, really technical baseball, which is really hard to come by in the SEC these days. But it's working for them. And it's going to be such a cool series because I think this is the highest that both teams have been ranked coming in. I feel like Kentucky hasn't been ranked this high since that super regional year in 2017. I think that was. So it's going to be a really good series. We're going to have to play really technically sound. Of course, we're going to hit the ball out of the yard, but they're just not going to make mistakes, and they're going to make us pay when we do make mistakes.
So 2017, that was what, your junior year, right?
I wish.
I know you're not a pitcher. I know you're not a catcher, but obviously you're a baseball player. And you play a part in that over there at first base, managing the run game. There's I'm not going to act like I know all the intricacies of it, but there's a reputation of Frank not worrying about the base runners, worrying about the batter, right? And the delivery slow to the plate and all that. But with a team that runs, you got 3 guys who have over 13 stolen bases. What type of emphasis can the coaching staff put on that this weekend to maybe try to channel in more on that, and like saying, hey, when they get on base, they're going to try to do some small balls. You just can't let them, have a field day out there.
Yeah, so first thing, Kentucky knows that we're not going to be quick to the plate, so they are going to be looking to take extra bases. The second thing is you kind of dig yourself into a hole when you preach this, worry about batter pitching style, because then when you do have to speed it up, it can lead to, errant pitches, just not your best stuff. There's certain guys that can handle it, that are just gamers. But in general, when you have to go quicker than what you're used to, it's never a good thing. So I think that they're not really going to preach it too much. They're going to, keep it in the back of your mind. Hey, these guys like to run, but also do if they end up on second, then you better get the guy at the plate out. Once they see, if they're hitting single scoring these guys, then maybe you make a change. But I think in general, they want to stick to their plan. They don't want to speed our own pitchers up. And they're just going to see if our stuff is going to be better than their hitters.
All right, man. It feels like this series is always kind of wacky. We mentioned the weather. There's something that always goes on. Like last year, I actually didn't cover this series last year, but there was like 2 rain delays. They were at Lindsey Nelson Stadium all day long. What's your prediction for Tennessee, number 4, Kentucky, number 3? Tennessee's actually as high as number 2 in one poll. Probably the must-see, it's not going to be on television, but the must-see series around college baseball this weekend. What's kind of your prediction?
It's so funny. I think it's going to be a couple of boring ball games. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of home runs hit. There's going to be some strikeouts, but I think you're going to watch a very kind of major league-esque game where it's just going to be 2 teams that are grinding it out. I think scores are going to be, anywhere 6-4, maybe one team, hopefully Tennessee gets a hold, maybe like a 9-4 kind of deal. But like I said, I think it's going to be a relatively boring series, which makes it really exciting because, it's you have to sit on the edge of your seat. We're not going to blow anyone out. So I think look for really, really good baseball this weekend.
And the fact that you won some games like that last weekend where it wasn't just run rule, winning that 3-1 ball game, that's going to help you.
It is.
All right, Luke, as always, man, appreciate it. And, man, if Tennessee wins this series this weekend, I think we're in that conversation of okay, Tennessee's legit. Knowing it's already one of the better teams in the country, but maybe making the case of where it is the best team in the country. We'll see how this weekend plays out.
Oh, yeah, we're teetering. Hopefully we can go the rest of the way.
Awesome stuff as always from our friend VFL, former first baseman, now number 3 in the career home run list for Tennessee baseball. That is Luke Lipsius here on the porch. Always a pleasure to talk with him and kind of hear his insights to the game, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Hey, big one coming up this weekend, away from Lindsey Nelson Stadium, going to a hostile environment at number 3 Kentucky. Number 4 Tennessee travels to number 3 Kentucky. And I think the winner of this one's going to be on the verge of being a great baseball team. We're going to find out, you're going to have some validity to that number 4 ranking overall, in my opinion. So it's going to be a big one. I'll be in Lexington all weekend long, @_Kaner on Twitter. But, of course, you guys know where to find me. That is on the General's Quarters over at Volquest.com. Appreciate you guys for listening and for watching to us here on the porch. Big shout out to our friends. Presenting sponsor, that is Spivey King and Spivey LLP. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. TN Trial Lawyers, where they specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. Free consultation if you call them today at 423-245-4185. And, of course, you can visit them online at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Spivey King, Spivey LLP. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. TN Trial Lawyers are presenting sponsors of the porch. Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Thank you guys as always. I hope you have a great weekend. And hey, we'll see what Tennessee baseball does at Kentucky. This is The Porch, a Volquest.com baseball podcast.